Hello, we did it. We're live. Welcome to the Survivor New York Recap Podcast, brought to you by Live Reality Games. They're live, they're reality, they're games. And today we are doing our very final episode of the Survivor New York Season 3 podcast dissection discussion. We're talking to Susan, which is, I think, probably the episode everybody wanted. So, first of all, we have our host and leader, Chris Lord. Chris, how's it going?
Good. I'm excited to do this one. I'm really happy to be with everybody and kind of sad because it's kind of like the last one. But I'm just so impressed that the fact that the entire cast came out and did the podcast. And Dan, you've done it a few times. Naomi, you've done it every week with me. So I'm so grateful. I'm very happy.
Yes, I agree. I think it's the best sort of reunion we could have given the circumstances. And it was a lot of fun every single week. And we have, yes, 3-time, right, guest? We have Dan,
I think so.
on season 3,
Hi.
contestant on season 3. Dan, hi, how's it going?
Repping the production shirt, loving it. Life is good. It's funny because I think how many years? 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Over 2 years that we had this game.
Almost 3.
And I had stalled moving out to Michigan until the game. Like my job had ended, my apartment had switched leases over, but I was just so invested in making this all come to life, and I feel finally settled. And so it's funny to sit here just completely on the other end of the world from where I was 2 years ago, and I get to finish all out with the people I started with. So it's just so great.
Yes, the cycle is complete. No more people asking if season 3 is coming out soon. It's done. And we have with us our 5th place contestant, the one everybody is talking about. We have Susan. Susan, how are you?
Hi, I'm great, you guys. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be a part of this whole program. It was the most wonderful experience that even though it's been 2.5 years, I still talk about it. I still share it with people. It's hard to describe to someone who has not participated because it was life-changing for me. And that may sound really like an exaggeration, but it truly was, thanks to you guys, a really wonderful experience. And I was lucky to be a part of it.
I think if anybody knows how life-changing live reality games are, it's this group right here.
Yeah.
We see Chris crying at the end and me crying at the end. And, Dan, if you cried, chime in. But we were all a bit emotional.
Definitely cried. More in private, but yeah.
Well, we're going to start things off. Chris, we're going to talk about the entire game from Susan's perspective. But Chris, what do you want to start off with?
I think we just have to start from the beginning. So, Susan, Emily approaches you with this idea to play this game. Run me through, what went through your minds, the preparation, the auditioning, then, the drive up here together. What did she talk to you about? What were you expecting that first night? That's a lot of questions I have, but kind of sum that up for me.
Okay. Well, she approached me to say that she wanted to participate in this game together, Blood versus Water. And to be honest, I had watched Survivor, back when it started. I think I saw 2 seasons. Richard Hatch, was he the original guy? That's my experience with Survivor. So when she said to me, I want you to do Survivor, I thought, well, how can I do Survivor? I don't even watch the game, and I didn't know anything about it. But Emily was so funny. She wanted me to do it, and she wanted to participate, so she needed someone to do it with her. So she gave me a really good selling job. Oh, it's easy. It'll just be fun. It's just a weekend. And as a mom, you guys will be there one day, or a parent. Will do almost anything for your kids, and especially if they want to share something with you, it's hard to turn that down. So I said, sure, I'll do it, kind of blindly going into it, not really knowing what to expect. And then I got really nervous because I interviewed with Dan, and he asked a lot of great questions, things that I had never even thought about the answers to in my whole life. He asked me about our relationship with Emily, were we competitive? And I started telling him these funny stories about how competitive we really were. And I didn't realize we were going to be against each other. So that was kind of a funny thing. But Emily she answered my my interview sheet initially. She interviewed me online and then filled in my responses, and she's very funny. So she wrote down really funny stuff, way funnier than I could have said it. And I think that's probably what sparked an interest in our applications. Is that right, Dan? I think you guys thought
Yeah, I was definitely casting for relationships. I wanted people who had very deep non-survivor connections. Of course, we always try for like real family in a blood versus water season, but even beyond that, like just people whose rapport felt natural and where you could definitely see how they related to each other.
Right.
It's like how what stories immediately just make sense to us as viewers. And so your dynamic with each other was just so hilarious. And I think
it is funny, yeah.
having her be the recorder of your answers and like put her own commentary in it, it immediately gave us a sense of what it would be like to have your confessionals like side by side, which they were wonderful side by side confessionals of you two. And you just complement each other very well. It's very engaging and warm.
Yeah. Well, we're very close, and like I said, I would go to the ends of the earth for my kids. And so when she asked me, I said, "Why not? It's just a weekend." And I thought, it'll be fun. And it went beyond what I thought it was going to be, and it really helped our relationship. I mean, not helped it, but just I don't know, solidified the bond that we have. And there were so many things that happened during the game that I thought could actually jeopardize our relationship, because we do have a little bit of a competitive family. And going against Emily in a show that she's more familiar with, I was worried, how could I compete against her once we realized we were going to be doing that? But the ride up, I picked her up in New Jersey. So I drove up, picked her up on the way, and she was trying to tell me a lot of stuff because I always embarrass my kids. So driving up, she's like, "Well, don't talk about this. And don't talk about this, and just try to not talk too much," because I think she thought I'd be embarrassing her the whole weekend. So I was a little bit on guard because I was like, okay, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to, and but in the meantime, I started watching some seasons to prepare myself, and I started getting nervous about the challenges. So, excuse me, I run anyway, so I thought, well, I can run a little bit, and the physical challenges were making me nervous, but I also saw in some of the seasons how people manipulate the circumstances, and I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to do that. But I feel like as the season went on, I started manipulating people, which I didn't think I had it in me, really. I mean, it was just weird to have to lie, because that's hard. And so it was really interesting to prepare for it, because I was trying to get myself all geared up for the physical and the mental challenges that I knew might present themselves to me over the weekend. So that's how we got there.
I've got to tell you.
Day zero, though.
I just wanted to say, first of all, Louis says hi.
Hi, Louis.
You look beautiful, which I agree. And then we also have Davey from season 4, who says that you were a joy to watch. Seeing you play warms my heart. Davey is so nice. The next time you come back to New York and you hang out with, the bar is closed, but next time you come back, you'll meet Davey.
I would love to meet
The
Davey.
world is opening now.
I think you did a better job
preparing for this season than any of the other newbies in the cast, because I don't think any of the others watched Survivor as a result of realizing that they were going to be on the show.
Oh my gosh, that's so
or at least
funny.
not a full season. And I think that's what Emily said had happened. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right. Yeah. I started watching, and I was like, how am I gonna do this? And so we were watching a lot of the well, I forget exactly but how much we watched, but I was really trying to prepare myself. And of course you can never really prepare yourself, because the challenges are all so different. And even if you could get good at holding a ball in your hand and standing on one leg, you might not do that in your season. So I didn't really know what to expect with that.
And I think you went the furthest that anyone who hadn't seen Survivor before the casting process had gone, right? Because the top 4 were all super fans.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
I think Sarah was the only other massive fan that was in the top 11. It was Susan and Sarah, and Sarah was 10th place. So it's like that is an interesting point, and that's very. I think it's so interesting that as far as she did, and it's such a fun ride to kind of watch. But Susan, talk about, you got here with Emily. You're seeing the players. like, were there anybody like that you sort of gravitated to that you remember? Any sort of talks that you can remember from that night, or maybe even just like when I situated you in that tent with the two other couples, and just like the late night, like all before the first morning. Do you remember?
I remember a lot of the conversations. I remember meeting Hoy and his sister, and I thought that they were so nice. And we were talking about traveling, and we just had like a lot of little snippets of conversation. And then I remember Sam and Pete, and I was a little intimidated because they seemed really intense, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm out of my league here. Like, but then Louis was super sweet and really funny, so he kind of eased my nerves a little bit. So we did, I think you guys did a good job of putting us in the room and just having us kind of go around and introduce ourselves to each other. And that helped with my nerves. But it did also make me a little more nervous because some people seemed like, I think Sam told me he had never missed an episode of Survivor ever. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to be super prepared. So it was a little bit of a lot of different emotions going on that night. And then in the tent, I brought a tent that was supposed to be, I thought, I'm going to be in upstate New York. It's going to be cold, even though it's August or July. My tent was like for like 50 below. So it was so hot and I couldn't get out of there because I was terrified of bugs. So the first night, Emily was down at my feet. I don't think I slept for 10 minutes straight. I was wedged between Sam and Pete and Kayla and Sandy. And I just couldn't come out of my tent because I was afraid. I'm afraid of insects and stuff. So I was like, when I got up the next morning, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I pulled an all-nighter. It was kind of funny like that. So starting like that was a little nerve-wracking, but all good.
I'm amazed you survived day one with like that experience overnight. That sounds like harrowing.
Well, the second night was easier because we were in a bigger tent and some of the people weren't there, so we had more room and more space. And although that was the night I woke up and heard that people were looking for the idol in the middle of the night. And Emily was like, oh my gosh, maybe we should be doing that. And I'm thinking, I just want to get a little bit of shut eye. But yeah, I was really tired when I got home after the weekend, but just tired emotionally from the dynamics of the game. I mean, I think you can't even state that enough to somebody who hasn't participated. Mentally, it's such a challenging weekend, and you're just on the whole time trying to figure stuff out that I was really exhausted after, in a good way, but it's tiring.
Yes. Yeah. And also, I just want to say Lisa is here to say that she's so proud of you and Emily. And Lisa has been rooting for you all the way on Instagram, on Facebook, back when it happened.
She's my best friend from Charleston. She's so sweet. Maybe Lisa and I could do it one day, like if you do a best friend Survivor or whatever. Yeah, she's one in a million. So yeah.
Open invite to Lisa. Well, I think that so you had mentioned that you didn't realize that maybe you and Emily would be split up. So what was your first thought when you realized that you were on a different tribe than her and you were like, oh no.
Oh gosh. Well, it's funny because that first challenge, if you guys remember, it came down to Emily and I. And I had to decide on the spot whether to try my hardest and stay in the game and to beat Emily and maybe cost her the game. And I was there because of Emily. So, and that's all happening. And, during the course of the way it tied up, I think it was 8 to 8 or something like that.
It was the game point. Yeah.
It was the game point. And so that was a lot of pressure. But I thought to myself, I'm here to play and I have to give it my all because we've taught our kids to always try their hardest. And then Emily forgot to turn something over, so it was my advantage. And then I won, and I was so happy because I didn't think I could ever bring a point home for the team. And I thought, well, they won't get rid of me right away, even because I could win a point. But then the whole time that you guys left with the other team, I think you were in the bus and you were gone for, it seemed like forever, like 2 hours or something. And all I could sit was, oh my gosh, when they come back, and if she's not in that lineup, I'm just going to be like, it was so bad. Like I really second guessed it afterwards. But then one of the girls, I think it was Ashanti, apparently she was telling people, well, I don't know if Susan's really here to play. Like maybe we should get rid of her because she doesn't really want to go against her daughter. So I feel like I had to do that to last a little bit, like if I had just let Emily win, which I wouldn't have just let her win, but I mean, if she hadn't made the mistake, it would have been who knows, I might have been the first one to go,
Wow.
So
well, and I think you see it in the first episode, one of my favorite moments of the entire season, which I feel bad because you care so deeply about Emily, which is so beautiful. And then Sandy, on the other hand, is like, we're winning. It's awesome. Like, does not care about shit whatsoever. And it always makes me laugh when I watch it back. Of course she cares, but she's like, oh, I'm glad we're winning. That's all I
know.
But that is such a tough spot to be in. And
oh my gosh.
And Emily actually gets a vote at the first tribal council because she's so, and Mark had talked about it in the episode we just did with him, where he says he voted for her to scare her, but I think Emily was scared enough after losing to you and probably on edge anyways. Also, Pete is here to say hi, Susan. Love you.
Hi, Pete. Oh, love you too.
So glad to have Pete here. And I think this sets up this very first moment sets up what happens throughout the rest of the game, which is that you're always both sort of willing to fall on your sword for Emily, but you're not willing to give up in the game. It's a really, really fun thing to watch. And so you finally go to tribal council in episode 3, where you guys voted Avanti. But did you think at all that you might be on the chopping block when this came? You'd already won 2 challenges, but this is the third, and you also lost this challenge.
Right. I always thought that it would be me. Just going into it, because I was like, I'm against all these heavy duty players. It's my time. Like, I kept thinking that. And then I know we'll talk about it later. The most horrible moment for me was running the wrong way in that other challenge. And I thought for sure, I mean, I think I told everybody, I get it, get rid of me because I cost us that challenge. And so I went into the challenges always thinking it was going to be me. It's kind of a funny thing, but I just felt like I was against all these really, really good competitors, and I almost felt like I didn't belong at first, and then I started realizing, well, I can kind of blend in a little bit, and maybe I can just be an asset to somebody who needs my vote. Maybe I can go a little further than I thought initially. So,
and that can be a winning game. I think that there's definitely a way to bond with people over vulnerability of saying well, I think I'm going home. So if you feel like that's the same way for you, then let's team up. It's a very honest way to connect with people.
Yeah, and that's kind of what my strategy was, because I knew I wasn't strong enough physically really to do a lot of the things that other people could do. And that's kind of, I think, was sort of my strong point, that I could do that. So, yeah.
So
Chris,
Susan, what else do we have?
So in the beginning of the game, I'm just curious, before we get to the swap portion, who from your original tribe do you feel like you had made a strong bond with in the game? Were there any particular people? And maybe if also the opposite, was there anybody that kind of rubbed you the wrong way?
I think Louie and Gary were just such warm people, just to have on my side, and they couldn't have been nicer to me. I think they knew I was a fish out of water, and they really kind of looked out for me a little bit, and that made me feel good. There wasn't really anybody that I didn't really connect with. I mean, I think everybody kind of gets this impression that Anessa and I didn't get along, which really wasn't the case. We just didn't have a chance to really work together once the swap happened. And I mean, I thought Anessa was intense, and more intense than I would be. And so maybe that was somebody that I didn't really feel the same connection with as, say, Louie or Gary.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. I don't think Anessa ever, there was never any sort of unfriendly feelings. It's just that I think by the time that you guys were in a place where you could have maybe, it's just, Anessa talks about it a lot. She wanted to work with Emily and you. It never sort of panned out.
It never worked, right?
Anessa could never Anessa wants to win, she's the competitor.
Absolutely.
And so she can never wrap her sort of head around why would you play this game not to win? Which, it's to each their own. And I think it's very fun to watch you guys interact, because it is a really interesting. I feel like in our day-to-day life, we don't get to meet too many people who have completely different styles of just operating and living.
Absolutely.
And so it was very fun to watch, especially because it was really just over, fake Survivor. So it's not not life-changing, but
it was really good. And I think that I learned a lot from Anessa, just because she really goes full throttle. And sometimes I think I don't have that same drive in certain areas, and I really respect that. Like, she really was in it to win it, and she got to be the final three, so it worked. Oh, my son's cat is in the that's Poe.
Adorable.
It's honestly, it's not the first cat we've had on the podcast. Eddie's cat crashed when Eddie was here, so it's totally fine.
I'm sorry.
Nothing wrong with the cat.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
No problem.
So Susan, we get to the swap now, and you're on the tribe with Emily, and from my perspective, it felt like you decided from that moment on, it was like whatever Emily wanted, and like maybe had said, that you were going to go along with that. Is that true? And
It's
also
pretty
explain to me, like, how did you feel, like how do you feel about going on that tribe and those new people that you met? Yeah.
Well, I think that is true, and I feel kind of embarrassed to admit that. Like, I was just kind of going with Emily's lead, and this is the shout out to Emily. She sort of took me under her wing, and since I've watched the other episodes, I saw that she was very willing to get rid of me if if she had to, to move on, and I'm totally fine with that. But I was very much happy. I was so happy when we were together, and I thought, I'm just gonna take her lead and do what she tells me. And she's she knows this game so well. Chris, what was the other part of the question?
Like, how did you feel about these new tribe members you just met, and then like also how did you feel about having Sandy and Josh on this new tribe?
Gosh, Mark was on my new tribe, right?
Yeah.
Was he?
So your new tribe members were Emily, Mark, Pete, and Katie.
Okay.
As well as
Sandy
and Josh.
I felt really good about that team, that tribe. I feel like Mark reached out early on and let me know that, he and Emily were close, and I really trusted Mark, and and I even carried that through all the way to the end. Like, I was going to help him get to the final three if I could, and I felt really. Pete was wonderful. Katie, the same thing. Like, there was a really big connection in that set of people, and I trusted all of them. I felt like they were very, as far as you can trust people in this game. But I felt like I had a nice relationship with all of them. So
Okay.
Yes.
So
yeah. Well, I was wondering, Dan, did you have any thoughts on this swap tribe, considering that we get I would say some of the most heartbreaking vote outs in this tribe, like with the running the wrong way, and how much Josh was to be there. I was wondering if you had any thoughts.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting mix of people, and I guess I was a little more surprised that Josh didn't try to rally you and Sandy towards, taking Emily and doing something at the beginning there. But as you said, I mean, it does seem like you just had a very wholesome connection. It's very, and this is like a Survivor reference or whatever, but the Rotu 4, I guess, in Marquesas, like they were just this very wholesome, loving group of people that were really, broken up about voting each other out, and it made it a different type of watch experience than, like, let's say the tribe on the other side of the counter this round with the crazy numbers up in the air and people yelling at each other. Like, it was a very different experience.
I feel like everybody in this group, again, it's my first and only experience, so I don't have anything to compare it to, but everybody was really, like, super nice and kind of tolerant of those that weren't as experienced, and I just felt like it was a really nice group of people, And again, so fortunate to be a part of this group, I guess. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, I
like
want to
the
talk
ninth
about it.
season. Yeah. Go.
I
Go,
think
Chris,
we have to
go.
talk about the challenge, the moment of the game that maybe it was not your favorite moment, Susan, running the wrong way.
Oh my gosh.
So I think that was really heartbreaking, but the funniest part is the video that Emily had sent Naomi of you reacting to seeing it for the first time. I think
Oh
it's one of the
no!
funniest things I've
I
ever
don't know that
seen,
I've seen
and
it.
it's so funny. I mean, I've seen you talk about it. So how is it looking back on that moment for you?
Uh, Well, it's so funny because I told Emily, I can run. So if there's gonna Emily just said wrong way lady
Oh no!
because I said to her, I can't do a lot of physical things. I'm not as strong as a lot of people, but I run. I was running 3 or 4 times a week and I'm not super fast, but I was doing at that time about a 9-minute mile. So that's not terribly slow. So I was worried that I was going to have to eat a bug or because I saw that on one of the survivors. And I thought I can't back out of a challenge that I have a little bit of chance of succeeding in if there comes up an eating challenge and I can't I can't get myself out of that one. So I had to keep doing the challenges I thought I was able to do. And I was really worried about eating a bug. So that's why the running thing, I'm like, oh, I can run. I can do that. And then we had such a lead. We had a 2-person lead. We had that in our bag. I mean, we had won it. And then I was so nervous. Now, when I watched it with Emily and my husband and my son, they said, like, weren't you paying attention? Weren't you watching the other runners like before you? Because I think I went third or fourth, and I
Right.
don't know where my
Mhm.
mind was or what I was doing. I think I was so nervous about the actual running that I just was trying to like psych myself up for the run. And then when I saw everyone like yelling or cheering, I thought they were cheering. I thought they were like, "Go, Susan!" And then they're like, "No, go back!" And I thought I was gonna die. And I ran as fast as I could. When I got back, I was all winded. I was, like I had started off as fast as I possibly could. I mean, I was running, running, running. And then the worst part of the whole thing was that after it happened and I didn't get voted off, someone who was watching said, "How is Wrong Way Lady still on the show?" Like,
I saw that and I
I
was like,
and then my son actually gave that comment a thumbs down because he was watching like live on Facebook, I guess, and he saw somebody say that and he was like, I'm gonna give that a thumbs down. So I didn't know any of that until after it had been, after we
Yeah.
but so now everybody calls me Wrong Way Lady. Like whenever we talk about Survivor, they're like, "Oh, you're Wrong Way Lady," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I
oh,
can't
so
believe
funny.
what a terrible nickname to have." And like I
I
said, the running was the one thing I thought I could do correctly on the show. So it was
with
a
the
disaster.
I'll confirm
Oh
with
God.
Caleb, but I'm pretty sure that the woman who says runaway lady is Sandy's friend, and that's kind of where it's
Yeah,
coming.
That's where it's
you
coming
know,
from.
it was
Probably.
personal on their end. It got personal on your end.
Yeah.
But Emily said that
Yeah,
you
but
actually
they're like,
came back. Susan, Emily said that you came back to my
oh,
house and that you
we
ran
did.
the track again, but you ran it the right way.
We did. I had to redeem myself. So we were going for a hike with Emily and up in the mountains, and we knew we were driving right past Chris's house, and we had talked ad nauseum to Barry about the whole weekend. And I said, this looks familiar because I had driven there. And I said, is there any way we could just stop and maybe see Chris and I could show you where everything happened? Because like I talk about it all the time. So Barry's he's a really good, nice guy. And he's, we were just up for the day, I think, but he was like, okay. So he let us go and we came to your house and Chris unfortunately wasn't home, but Emily's like, let's go show Dad like where we ran and where you did the, in the playground. So we got out, and I wish I could show you somehow, but he actually filmed us running on the path where I actually went the wrong way. And so Emily and I were pretending to be in the challenge, and it felt good to be there, after so many months afterwards, and sort of do it the right way. But oh my gosh, yeah, I can't even describe that. That was one of the bigger points in the whole weekend for me because I couldn't I couldn't believe I did that, you know. It was really not very good.
You survived. Yeah, that was great.
I guess,
You survived.
yeah, I guess so. But that was really the point where I thought, this is it. I'm not, there's no way I'm going to survive this because I just cost us the challenge. Well, I'm sorry. Now the dog is chasing the cat, and it's all good.
Well,
He's not
and
okay.
I think that also brings up what I was saying earlier is like this, Survivor's hard to lie to people no matter what. Like, I know I've played as a fan, and like still there are votes where you're lying to someone and you're like, this sucks. I hate that I do this because this makes me feel bad. And I feel like
Yeah.
the Sandy vote and the Josh vote are the two votes that are like, this makes me feel bad about playing Survivor because like these all these lovely people are just having to go against each other. Like, and those in particular are the two votes where like, even I was sitting there being like, oh my gosh, this is hard to watch. I can't do it.
It is. That is probably one of the hardest parts of the whole game. Just
Mhm.
not like, I mean, just sort of saying something to somebody when you know it's not really the truth. It's hard, and so I know it's part of it, and and it's never in a malicious way, but it's how you play. And I think the longer the game went on, the more I had to do that, I guess. If I had been one of the early ones, I wouldn't have even had to have a chance at lying or, telling somebody I wasn't voting for him when I was. But I realized that, like, you have to do certain things. And I don't feel like it's unethical. I feel like it's just part of the game, and everybody who plays realizes that. But that was a hard part, I think, for probably everybody.
Definitely.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think any Survivor fan who's played one of these games, I don't know if Dan and Chris you agree. It is just that's the part that like when you like the person so much and then you're in a tough spot, it's the one that feels the worst. Also, I love
Yeah.
Louis saying that you running on the playground is the cutest thing he's ever heard.
I wish you had seen it. I'll have to send you guys in a group text like the actual video footage of Emily and I running on the playground.
Yes,
It was funny.
I'll put it as one of the features on the DVD.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Louis,
gosh.
Louis, everyone redeeming themselves in chat. Louis stacking the Jenga blocks, and we'll have Mark doing the puzzle correctly.
Oh,
We'll get them all in.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
so we lose Sandy and Josh, unfortunately, and then we hit the merge. Susan, were you excited to get to reunite with like Gary and Louis? Is that
Yes.
was there
Oh my
anybody else you were
gosh.
looking forward to seeing now that you're all
Um,
back together?
I didn't even know this. I feel really embarrassed again to admit this. I didn't really even know what the merge meant. And so when the merge happened and everybody was jumping around, and I remember looking at Emily like, what's the merge? Like, I think you get a special dinner or something. I don't know. Like, I just couldn't figure it out. And then I realized, oh my gosh, now we're all together. And it was so fun to be able to not be on these two tribes, competing against each other. It was really neat. And again, from a non-survivor person, the merge, like, it was such a level of excitement from everybody. And so I was happy again to see Louie and Gary and Sam, the whole group. It was really neat. And Sam, again, he and I worked well together too. So there were a lot of people on Purple that had a nice connection.
That was the tribe of the. Everybody was nice, but like that Purple tribe in particular, that group of like the really close gamers that we have an early moment where Gary and Louis say like, let's protect Susan, and I think that really sort of transpons when they're going to get rid of all your allies on the yellow tribe, but they're going to protect you. And
I know, I
their way.
know. And you guys, of course, I didn't know any of that until I watched the season. And so that was such a heartwarming part when I heard Gary say something to Louis about that. And I thought, you know what, that like they really were kind of looking out for me in a very nice, considerate way, even though it was a big competition. So that was really nice to see.
Yes.
Yeah.
So any questions, Chris, for Susan about the merge, or Dan? Chris has been thinking about this for like 2 years now that he's edited all.
So I feel like the merge vote was just so chaotic. I mean, all of us experienced it. Like, what was your thought about that? Like all the scrambling happening. Were you kind of like a deer in headlights type of moment? Because that was probably the most chaotic moment of the whole game, right?
It was. Like I said, I just sort of clung to Emily and let her lead me through. And I thought, I'm not really sure what this means. Because on one hand, you're trying to win these tri challenges, and then all of a sudden it becomes an individual thing, and that presents a whole nother series of stressors to somebody who maybe can't get carried from the rest of the tribe members who are strong. So it definitely was fun to be there, but also I'm thinking to myself, oh gosh, now if I get immunity, it's because I win a challenge, and how likely am I going to be to win a challenge? So it did present a little bit of chaos mentally, I think, in that respect.
As far as the results of that merge vote, were you expecting those two to go home, or were you expecting the idols to be played? Like, what were you expecting going into the vote, if you can remember, and how did it change on the outside?
Dan, can you remind me of what?
Of course, yeah, totally. So
I forgot.
idols were played for Hoy and for Pete. And then as a result of that, Katie and Sunchea, who both got 2 votes, went home.
I think I was surprised by that. I don't, even watching it like recently, I was surprised by that. And I remember like Alex or Mary said, why would they do that? Like what was the point of that? And I couldn't really I couldn't explain it, because again, I wasn't really good with strategy. But yeah, I was definitely surprised by the idols that were played.
Going into the vote, were you told anyone was going home that you believed would go home with like confidence? Because I know you must have voted for Hoy there, right?
I think I voted for Hoy. Yeah.
Yes. This begins the streak of Susan voting for Hoy, I think 5 times in a row.
Well, I think that Emily influenced me in that respect, because Emily sort of I think she sensed that Hoy was a really good player, and she kept saying to me, like, we got to get rid of some of the people that are really good at this, because then we can move further. So I kind of depended on Emily at that point to sort of steer me in the right direction. And again, it was nothing personal with Hoy. It was just, he seemed like he was really good at all the strategy and everything.
Uh-huh.
He's a really strategic player, kind of like Anessa. I think they were really on this, in this game to win it.
I had a quick question, Susan. If you ever won the immunity necklace, do you think you would have given it to Emily, or were you going to keep it for yourself? Maybe if you heard that Emily's name was going out there.
Right, like if you're in a scenario.
Oh, yeah. If I heard Emily's name was going to be put there, if she was on the chopping block, I would have given it to her. But if I didn't hear that, I would never give it to her. I would have been so proud to wear that necklace. I was, I wish I had. That's one thing I wish I could have said, that I wanted an immunity. And I remember the one thing, that the puzzle where we ran, and I won my heat, and then I competed against
Eddie and Emily.
Eddie and Emily, and I mean, that was one of the highlights for me, because again, it was like a mental and physical, the running and the remembering the puzzle and the number sequences. And I felt like I was close. Like I almost could have, there were certain challenges I knew I didn't have a chance in the world of winning, but that was one of those, like, oh my gosh, maybe I have a chance. So if I had won that necklace, I would love to have worn it, and only would have.
I think Susan, that was the challenge that you actually did the best in. Of all the individual immunity challenges, that one, you were so close. I'm talking like seconds.
Oh,
and I'm grateful that I didn't get to see it live, because I got to, see it on TV and be like, oh my God, does she get to win here? Wait, I don't remember this. Like, it did look so close, and I was like, oh.
And one of the questions I had for Emily was like, so Emily, why didn't you think, like, maybe talk to your mom and say, hey, let's work together and let's bump Eddie out of this. Like, you start the first row, I'll start the last row. We'll compare notes, and we'll beat Eddie. But then Emily brought up a good point. It's like, you're in the moment, you're tired, you're thinking
Right.
about so much in the game. It wasn't something that crossed her mind to try to manipulate the challenge in that way. She was just focused on winning the challenge. And I was like, you know what? That is a great point. But at the same time, did that ever cross your mind, or did you maybe get nervous to like try to implement that?
It never crossed my mind because I didn't know it was allowed. Like, I didn't know you could sort of pair up with somebody to get rid of someone else. And when we watched it just recently, both Alex and Barry were like, "Why didn't you and Emily?" Like, they even said that, and they don't watch Survivor, so they were like, "Why didn't you guys work together?" And I thought, "Oh shucks, I didn't know we could." But yeah, that would have been a great thing because I think we could have done it. With remembering certain sequences each other. I think that would have been a great idea. So next time, next time we'll do that.
I think the reason why I bring it up is because I feel like that particular round, if you had won the necklace, you could have given it to Emily, and then Emily ends up staying in the game. I think the whole line of how the game runs could have changed.
Yeah, because
it talks about like how everything, anything could happen in this game, and one thing happening leads to
Exactly.
the effect of Gary winning versus somebody else.
Right. And Jess is here to say more Susan, which, hi, Jess.
Oh,
how are you?
Hi, Jess.
Good to see you, Jess.
I agree with Chris. It's almost like a domino effect. Like if that had happened, who knows what the end result could have been. And I think this game actually, I told you guys I talk about it all the time. Well, for weeks on end after I got home, I kept thinking about different components of it, and wow, I wish I had done this or had done that, and it was so crazy to me, like how much of an impact this game had on my everyday life. Like I was just like really thinking about it all the time. The thing, yeah. Sorry, sorry. We have a laser thing for the cat, but the dog gets excited by it. Is it off? The dog goes crazy and he thinks it's a toy, or, something on the floor.
Yes.
Oh.
It is.
Oh, Barry, watch out. That's sorry.
Oh no.
Sorry. Just ask Alex.
Okay,
I'm sorry, you guys.
No, don't worry. I just want to say that fan of the show, Justin, says that Susan is a legend. And Justin, I agree. Couldn't agree more.
I agree.
Oh no. I don't know where that. I mean, that is so nice. Do I know Justin?
No,
You
Justin's
just said
a viewer back home, but I think we got so much response from viewers and people who were watching and follow us on Instagram and things like that, saying they were rooting for you and that they were a fan of you. Players from season 4 as well. So I think just Susan Fever is sweeping the nation. Or at least a live reality.
I think so.
Wow, that's awfully nice to hear. I just, it, like I said, I feel like maybe because I came in such unexperienced and sort of just winged it. I wish I'd like to have an opportunity to do it now that I kind of understand a little more. And I wonder how differently I would play. Like that's the funny thing. Like you look back and you think, oh, I should have done this or should have done that. But,
do you have any like number one example of a thing you wish you could go back and do?
Well, the whole thing with pairing up with Emily, like that, like Chris said, that could have been such a game changer. I think maybe just that's probably the biggest example, but just other little things like little conversations I had with people thinking, that they were really close with me and then maybe they weren't so close to me. Like, I don't know. I went in kind of blindly and trusting people. And then I realized, you can't really, I went in with a little naive mindset. And so I'd like to go back a little bit more experienced, but nothing in particular.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I was saying we're gonna have to do this whole season again, where it's just everybody. Like everybody wants to play again, so we're just gonna have to run it all again and get everybody together to play.
That would be great.
Yeah, right.
That would be so fun.
So Susan, something I think that since we're talking about the fans, I think one of the biggest moments of the season that touched a lot of people, so many people reached out to me saying like, wow, that moment was very, sweet, very honest, very open. And I think there's only 2 moments that I ever cried watching the footage. And this was one of those 2 moments. And it's when you open up about, your history with breast cancer and how much this weekend meant for you, just to be able to spend time with Emily. And, I think Jessica actually got the footage for this, and just the whole conversation you had with her was like really touching. And I was very, I feel honored that you were able to, express that to us, because it's something very personal, and you were able to kind of share that with other people. And, I say this all the time, like this is on YouTube for as long as YouTube wants to put it out there, and you could be a real support system for somebody out there one day, or maybe you are now. So, what was going through your mind, like kind of expressing that in that moment? Do you remember?
Well, yeah, I remember it really clearly, because when Emily and I were driving up to New York, and she knows I'm kind of I spill my everything to everyone, the waitress or the cashier, they all, I get into in-depth conversations sometimes when it maybe isn't even appropriate. So when she was telling me, don't talk too much, don't bring up your breast cancer, don't, not to be mean, she just wanted me to play for me and not bring all that with me, and which I think is so sweet. She didn't want me to have that in my mind. She just wanted me to go into the game just like everybody else. And when I talked to Jess about it, it was such I'm gonna cry, because as a survivor, it's so nice to know that you can still live your life fully and do everything that everybody else is doing, and it doesn't restrict you. And because sometimes you get this diagnosis of cancer and you think, oh my God, my life is over. And it's so not over. I mean, it was 10 years ago, and everything is going fine. But every day is a gift. And so I looked at this weekend, what a gift I got with Emily. And no one can ever, replace that. That's just, I'm sorry. It was just such an emotional experience. And I felt like at that point in the game, it was okay to share it. Emily was not trying to be mean. She just thought, like, don't bring that up, because you bring it up to everybody. And
Well, and
like,
Emily said it here, and I think it's a great point. Is we
yeah.
want you to be a threat for having such a lovely story and having such a story of survivor outside of the game. And I agree. I think if you had told people that right away, that they would have been like, oh my gosh, Susan is amazing. And then they would have had the horrible thought of, do we have to vote her out now because she's so amazing?
Right. Yeah, because it's true. Like, I think Emily wanted me to play on my own merit and not like have a backstory to sort of go for the sympathy vote or whatever. And so to me, that was so like eye-opening and amazing. Like, here I am just playing a game with a lot of people who were younger and stronger, and here I was, surviving in a survivor. So it's kind of funny, and I've done some neat things. Breast cancer has given me opportunities to do things that I normally wouldn't have had the chance to do. So it's almost like, that's been a gift in a strange way. I know that sounds weird, but it opens up different people and avenues and experiences that you might not have without it. And so every day you got to live your life to the fullest, and your game actually helped me do that. So I feel indebted to you guys forever, because like, I talk about this with Emily, like, we had such a bond. And I remember my dad wrote Emily a letter after this weekend, and he told her, I'm sorry.
No,
He said,
okay.
Your mother and you had such a wonderful experience, and I'm so appreciative that you invited her to participate. So everyone who knew us knew what this weekend meant for us, and we went into it without expecting anything. I mean, I had no idea that I would be so tightly bound to Emily after this weekend, because we've done a lot of fun things together. We've traveled together, but we've never done anything like this, which, I mean, you're so vulnerable, you're tired, it creates like a bond that you can't experience in just everyday life. And I think that's why this game was so amazing for both me and Emily.
Absolutely. And Emily, Emily even mentions here, I told her to bring it up with the final 3 if she waited. So Emily was helping you win the game from the beginning.
She was.
She's smart.
She was ready
I think
And
you would.
also,
I think that would have helped in some ways too. Like that story of being a survivor in your personal life and taking that strength that you were able to get through everything, and then come out here and play this game. Whether you knew the game or not, if you had gone to the end, I think you had such a story to tell. And
Yeah.
I made it till the day that I died that I think you had a chance to winning the whole thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
but I think Louis' comment here is special. In his episode that we did in the podcast, he said his favorite moment was the moment that he opened up you opened up your story to share with Louis, and you guys had a very personal connection. Do you remember that?
yeah. I had such a bond with Louis. There was something about Louis that just completely calmed me down. He was so darn funny that I feel like he was just entertaining me, like my personal little entertainer. The way he just would break into song or something, and I think I was so nervous going into this game that he was sort of my like relief, kind of my comic relief. And I remember feeling close enough with him to share, even though Emily had sort of told me, don't share it with too many people. And that was really nice to be able to tell somebody. I think that was before I told Jess about it. Um, because it is something that you carry around with you. And I've gotten when I first was diagnosed, I talked about it a lot. And as years have gone on and I've distanced myself from it, I don't bring it up as often, to random people. And so Louis gave me that chance just to sort of let it out a little bit. And I really appreciate him for that. Yeah.
yes, and I also think so. My father is a prostate cancer survivor, and
Oh, that's great.
it's something that just kind of reminded me of my family and my relationships. And I think that's part of why part of why certain people feel so touched is that it makes you think of your own family and how
Yes.
the relationship you can have with your mom or your dad if you play Survivor, or your siblings, and so it's a great and I think, first of all, like, Dan having the instinct to know that you guys would be such a great group to have on the show. It just like it reminds us why Blood versus Water is such a great theme and why it's really impactful and powerful, and not just in the sort of dramatic vote each other out way, in the really fun
Right.
way.
Yeah.
I
I mean, you really get to see like the inner workings of a mother-daughter or mother-son, that kind of thing. It's unexplainable, like just that bond that you have, and then this show just sort of heightens all of that, and it brings all those human emotions to the forefront. And that's why I keep saying it had such a lasting impact on my life, and I think Emily's as well. So
Yeah,
definitely.
when we get to make like important choices with the ones we love, and really get to see who a person is in regard to their values and their actions and their intellects and their approach to people in the world around them, like in such a unpredictable environment. I just feel like it's so you get to know someone fully in a way you really didn't get to know them before, that you wouldn't be able to know
exactly.
them just from playing Monopoly.
Right.
Um,
That's so true, Dan. That's so true. Yeah. And I think you
I want
guys
to
had a
bring
way of
up
bringing it out too. Oh,
yeah.
go ahead, Chris.
I just wanted to talk about something on the flip side, something really funny that happened this season. Sam and Hoy created this whole
Oh,
concept
God.
of, the idol. Last time we had some fog, the idol is hidden under a log, and it
And the
caused
log, yeah.
pandemonium, and everyone is running around crazy. But your daughter told us that there was one of the most strategic moments, or some observation that you had in the game, was that you noticed that Sam and Hoy were laughing, and you told Emily that you didn't actually believe their clue. Can you talk about that?
Well, I remember thinking it just seemed fishy to me, and I feel like they were talking, and um, I tend to observe people really intensely, and so I just felt like something wasn't quite right, and I don't remember telling Emily that I thought that, but I guess I did, and um, but I still thought, well, there's a chance that I'm not correct. So I remember going through that wood pile. I mean, we were pulling out every every log because I mean, I didn't know if my intuition was right. And so with this game, you can't depend on that. You feel like you got to exhaust all the means necessary to get find the clue or whatever. But yeah, that was really shocking to me because I didn't realize how people I didn't even know that was a thing, like a fake clue or whatever. So it was very eye-opening. Yeah, that was funny though. Yeah.
Dan, were there any
So
fake
another
idol
thing.
clues in season 2? Sorry, I just had this thought. Were there any fake idol clues in season
No,
2
it's
we might
okay.
not have known about?
I don't think so.
I think everyone
We entertained ourselves enough with just the banter.
I think they were too busy fighting every week. With somebody was fighting with somebody. So
Yeah, the banter.
there was no fake out of clue. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
God. But,
Oh, world, the world. Go ahead, Chris.
I want to discuss. So, like, I think one of the hardest parts of the whole game for you was seeing your daughter leave the game, and
Oh.
it's like, okay, I'm alone now in this game, and it's like it's that moment that was like either you fight or you flight, which is like you could be the next one out, which would have been the easiest move for everyone to make, or you could be part of something bigger and greater, and that ends up being the case because you end up going pretty deep in the game after Emily leaves. So like what was it like losing Emily and then on the flip side like becoming this, like you said many times, like a chess piece or a puzzle piece for somebody to help get
Right.
out some huge threats?
Mhm.
Well, when Emily left, I have to be honest, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe that Emily is gone and I'm still here. But on the flip side to that, I really did think, well, I'm going to try to go as far as I can now because, she's rooting for me and I'm only here because of her and she would want me to try as hard as I could. And that was kind of the moment when I realized I have to start figuring out how I can be worthwhile to somebody to keep around. Because I knew that I wasn't going to get there on my own, most likely. Um, and that's when I start positioning myself. Like I actually heard myself saying to Anessa, like, just, I'll go with whatever you want me to do. Just let's get rid of somebody stronger. Like that was so foreign to me, but I just went full throttle and I was like, you know what, I can play along. I can do this. And it was actually really fun to be able to do something I've never really done before. And I really wanted to do it for Emily. And I remember when she came back to the jury, that when they first walked back in, it was like this terrible feeling. But on the other hand, I thought I'm gonna try to go as far as I can for her because this is why I'm here. And so it was kind of an empowering moment, I guess you could say. Although it was sad too. So
Can we double back for a second to touchy subjects? I don't have any questions about it. I just want to talk about it. It was fabulous and see if some fun tidbits come up. That was so much fun to
Yeah.
watch. Did you have any favorite or
Well, and Emily wins.
questions? Oh, and then Emily won, right? Cherry on the cake.
oh my gosh, you guys, that was one of the hardest challenges, and to have to say something, put someone's name down for something that wasn't as nice. But I feel like Emily and I, that was a challenge I probably could have won because I love people and I love to like figure out relationships and things like that. So I'm observant and maybe I pick up things that other people might not. And I don't mean I'm not patting myself on the back about that. I really am intense. Like I'm nosy, so I really like pay attention to people, and I really thought maybe I could have won that one. But then again, it was hard to put other people's names down for categories that were insulting. Um, I thought that I could put my own name down for some of those, and then someone told me that that wasn't allowed, I think, or that was another something else. But yeah, that was actually really a tough one. But I was so happy that Emily won because I know Emily said going into this, her goal was to go as far as she could, obviously, but to at least win one immunity challenge, and she did. And so I felt like, oh, good. She achieved, some of her goals with what she was hoping for this weekend. So that was, but that was a funny one.
Yes, and you get the
Yeah.
episode title here because you are the one who
Oh.
says, "Don't tell Dad I said that."
Oh my gosh, that's right. You guys, I have
right.
to
That was
tell
the
you,
funniest.
that was
Go ahead.
we were getting ready to watch it, and I think Alex, my son, was like, why is it called Don't Tell Dad I said that? And then all of a sudden, you guys, I couldn't quite remember what the whole episode. I was like, why did I say that again? And then I was like, oh gosh, was I talking about Louis or
Yeah, 'cause
Gary?
Yeah,
you
Louis
wrote,
being
you
your
wrote
crush.
Louis down for your crush.
For my crush, right?
Yeah, which is
And
a goofy
so
question.
it's a goofy question, but it's kind of fun, because it's all in fun, and so
Yes.
but I remember thinking like, gosh, I haven't said I had a crush on anyone but my husband in a long time. So that was really fun. That was fun to be able to, kind of say I had a crush on somebody.
Yes, and also,
Yeah.
well, first of all, Billy from season 4 is here to say Queen Susan, which, yes, and then Hoy, hi Hoy.
Hi,
She cast
Chloe.
all against you, but you still love her. It's so good that you're here. This challenge is so fun, and the I that moment, I would like Chris and I had a discussion. We're like, that has to be the episode title, right? Like, there's no other option.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
pretty much.
that was really funny.
Yeah.
That was an exciting
was
And I
episode
was
title.
thinking the whole time, I was thinking, like, what is Susan's husband gonna think when he sees that? Like, would he laugh? Like, her
Yeah.
son? Like, I was very curious. Like, I think about the whole spectrum. Like, did they laugh about it?
They laughed about it. I mean, I think that they know I say some things sometimes that come out like in a wrong way. And so I kind of knew like they would take it in jest. Like, I wasn't really gonna leave
Yeah.
Barry for Louis or anything like that.
I would
But
totally
it
watch
was
that sitcom, but I'm glad it's not the case.
yeah, it's not the case. But I and Barry got to meet Louis at one of the reunions. And
Right.
so it was so fun for me because Barry again heard me talk about all of you guys and everybody in the game. And for us to go up to New York on a visit to Emily and actually go, we were at a party. We were at a big party somewhere and we
We
literally left and got
Yes.
to go to the bar where you guys were, and it was so funny because we couldn't wait to get there. Like we were like racing to see everybody, and I was so glad that Barry had a chance to meet everybody. And yeah, but that was so funny. Like when I saw the episode, I was like, oh gosh, I forgot what I had said. But yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I'm gonna scroll back through my photos and see if I can find this. But yes, that was really fun. We all got to watch Survivor together,
Yeah.
and just such a good time. And I miss Stone Creek so much, but
I
Yeah.
hope it comes
watching
back
Survivor
in some way.
I know. Too
Yeah.
So Susan, I brought up like, you had this momentum in the game. Like, Emily's gone. You were able to help get rid of Hoy. You were able to help get rid of Eddie. But now Louis gets voted out. And I think at the final 5, like, I have to say, that's when your game really just evolved like immensely. Like, you were working everybody hard. Like, you really came out, like, you were super strategic. Like, everything you said made sense to me. Like, I would have bought into it. I felt like in that round you should have stayed. So let's talk about your final round in the game. So, like, what were you thinking? And then also, were you being truthful when you told everybody that you were willing to go fourth, or was that just a ploy to maybe help get you to the next step? Because I don't know if you remember in the episode, Anessa had
Yeah.
said stuff about that, like that she didn't believe that.
You know what's so funny? At some point, I guess after Emily was gone and I was still hanging on, I got to the point where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I want to make that final 3. Like I really, really want to make that final 3." And I start saying things that I never thought I would say, like, "Oh, stick with me," and and I was doing it to everybody. And when we watched it back, Barry and Alex were like, "Oh my gosh, look at you! You're like working the room," because I was going over here, and I was going over here, and it was actually really fun. Like it was really fun to have some strategy because up until then, I was just kind of winging it, I guess. And but I actually think I just wanted to see how far I could go, and I really wasn't trying to win. And this Anessa didn't understand this, but I didn't really want to win, which sounds so crazy. But because it was Emily's thing, I just in the back of my mind thought, I don't want to win this when it's so important to her as her mom. Like it just, I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but I just wanted to go see how as far as I could go, but I didn't ever think I had a chance at winning, and I really don't think I wanted to win just because I didn't want to like hurt Emily's feelings. I know that sounds silly, but I was just being protective, I guess, of her. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Definitely. And then on the other side, when you're towards the end, you want to win, and I think part of that is, if I can win and I can sort of have this experience with Emily, and then kind of one of us pulls out a win, it's probably just as sort of exciting as if Emily had won.
Yeah.
Maybe not for Emily, but for you as a family.
Yeah. And the nice thing is, again, back to Emily, she was truly rooting for me, and that just speaks volumes about us and our relationship. And oh, that's so.
Yes, Emily says she could
cute
write
what she
"mom"
wrote.
down on the parchment
Mom
paper, which
on the parchment
would have been very
Yeah,
cute, and I probably would have started crying at that episode.
Yeah, but I mean, I think
Episode
that
title.
Emily would have been, genuinely happy for me to have won. And it would have been really something. But I just feel like it was a win. I know that sounds corny, but the whole weekend was a win, and I wouldn't trade any part of it. I had such a great time and learned so much about me and my relationship with Emily and about other people. And I formed these relationships. Now I know I follow all you guys on Instagram, and I love that. Like I gained like 30 new friends in one weekend, and I've enjoyed those relationships, even if it's just on Instagram commenting or direct messaging. It's so nice. I love that. And you get to share in people's lives, and after just one weekend, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, I think again, it says a lot about what you guys do for this weekend. It is amazing.
Yeah,
my honor. I'm sure I speak for everyone on that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely my honor.
definitely.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I
And
think your final words were like, I think that was really great to hear, just your final words about, meeting strangers and, being able to compete in the challenges, not always winning them, but just being a part of them. It sends a good message, I think.
Yeah, it's such a great.
What were you going to say, Naomi?
Oh, I just wanted to say, because I forgot to say it at the beginning, but we have a couple, we have this Survivor New York family. We have a couple things that are exciting in the Survivor New York family, which is we talked about Emily's engaged, which Mazel Tov to her again, but Chantal just got engaged, so congrats to her, and congrats to Matt from season 2 on his engagement. And if your loved ones ever want to play, hit me up. I think is the other side.
Yeah. Oh, galaxy brain.
If you get engaged, then they have to play Survivor New York. That's the
I have an announcement. No, I don't.
I feel like Chantel's fiance. I mean, he's always gonna be a backup. Like if somebody were to drop out, I'm just gonna throw him in there because he's just always around now. So that's probably gonna happen down the road. But I think he would actually do really good. So it would be funny.
Yeah.
Same for if my little brother moves back home, he's definitely going on the alternate list of this is.
I would actually love that, Naomi. I really actually would love that.
We'll see. But yes, I think like what you said, Susan, the Survivor New York family just grows and grows every year, and it's such a shame that season 4 is going to be so fun, and so when everybody tunes in to watch that, and everybody from season 3 gets to know season 4 more, and season 2 and 1, but especially you guys, because there's a lot of overlap of people who might know each other. But I just wish we could have another day at a bar where everybody could hang out and get to really see each other and meet each other. It's such a shame. But Instagram is the next best thing.
Yeah. I love that.
So I think one of the last sections, Susan, is the final tribal council. what was your thought process? Like, were you always going to vote for Gary, or were there any moments that made you think maybe I might vote for Sam? Or, and I also want to know the true facts. Like, did Emily say anything to you that maybe influenced your vote?
I think that I asked Emily, where she was going with her vote. I think we had that conversation, but I had a strong connection to Gary, and Gary's I don't know what you call it when they talk to the tribe. I was so touched by what he said and all he gave so many compelling reasons to vote for him that to me it was a clear choice. Again, I think Anessa and Sam both played an amazing game. And I think Sam and I, like, just being a little bit on the older side, part of me maybe wanted to see someone closer to my age, walk away with it. But there was just something from day one with Gary, the first time I met him. I just had this connection. And so I feel like that was sort of, I think he played such a good game because he never even, his name was never even put down. I mean, that's amazing that, he could go that far without being voted on by anybody. So I think Emily and she told me who she was voting for, but I think for me it was a clear choice. And again, I loved what he said at the end. It just made a lot of sense.
Yeah, and Emily says that she thought you were very torn on who to vote for, and you can see it when you come to vote. You're just so impressed by everybody who plays, and
yeah.
Obviously the emotional connection with Gary is there. But like you said, Stan played a great game too, and Nessa played a great game. It's so hard to make this decision, knowing how much it means to, I think, each of the three of them.
Absolutely, yeah. And Anessa was so, even watching this season back, I knew that she was a pretty intensive player when we were doing it, but looking back, like, watching her in the show later, even with my family members, she was really, really good at this. I mean, her mind was way beyond anything I was thinking. Like, I mean, she had numbers in her head, and she was very analytical about it, and I really respected that. I don't think I respected it as much during the weekend as I did after watching it back. She really had a handle on everything. So yeah, it was a tough. I mean, any one of those three could have, easily won, and I think they all deserved it, really. So
hands down, yeah, completely. And so I think Dan or Chris, do you? I don't know if you have more questions, but Dan, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I've just enjoyed this so much. I don't really have anything to add in this particular moment, but my smile reflecting yours.
Yeah.
I have some more questions. Okay, there's just a couple
Chris
more.
got it
So
okay.
yeah, so obviously you experienced the game, but watching it back is like totally different. So like, what was the moment that you didn't know about that you saw on camera and you were just like, oh my God, wow, like that actually happened? Like what was that moment for you?
Well, the first one was when Mark voted Emily in the first or second tribal council. Because when I came over to be with Mark, I felt like he and Emily were really solid. And when he voted for Emily, I was like, what's he voting for Emily for? Like they were really good allies when I came over to their side of the table. So that was shocking. But then because I even said to Emily, why did Mark vote for you? That was completely surprising to me. But then the Hoy and Pete thing happening, that was also surprising because I think I was not a part of any of those conversations, I guess. And I do think it was funny because when we get towards the end and Emily's gone and I think Chris, you asked me like, oh, are you now like really working on these relationships? And at the time I felt like I hadn't been because I felt like everybody else was pairing up and chatting, and I was just wandering around. Alex said, what are you doing? You're just walking around by yourself in the background. Like you could just see me hanging out by myself. And I thought, yeah, I maybe should have gone in a little sooner because then I realized I guess I have to strategize. But at the time I was just trying to like blend in, and so I think that looking back, that was kind of funny too. So, oh, but that's, yeah.
I think there was a lot of
Yeah.
funny, like quirky moments of you looking for the idol, and I pretty much put all
I
of
was
them into the
impressed by your
episode, and it became
dedication.
part of like your.
Your arc, yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
It was so
great.
funny. Like,
Not always
I
striking the gold, but always sticking with a good attitude.
yeah. Yeah, I try to keep a good attitude. It was so funny because if you guys had watched it with us here at the house, there were moments when Barry and Alex just flat out are laughing at me. They're like, "What are you doing?" Like, because I guess sometimes I would turn to the camera and just talk like I was supposed to be talking, to somebody, and they were just laughing so hard. They're like, "What are you doing?" And I don't know. It's some of it is embarrassing, when I look
Oh,
back.
those are
But
my favorite moments where like Susan's
oh,
just like, so here's what's going on to the camera. My favorite.
I
It
think it's
tells us
oh
exactly
gosh,
what's happening. We know
yeah,
exactly what's going on. And
yeah,
you're just
That
letting
was
us
so
know. It's
funny.
really funny. You feel like you're kind of being
yeah.
let in on a
Yeah.
secret, which is like, so this is what I think is happening. You're like, okay, Susan, I'm in. Like, I'm playing with you.
Yeah, I know, but a lot of times I was dead wrong. I mean, I didn't really have a handle on it, but I thought I did, I guess, But yeah, it was great.
Susan, do you have a
So, yeah.
favorite overall memory that was either caught on camera or off camera? If you could pick one.
Gosh. Oops. Oh, my AirPod fell out. I'm sorry. That's quite a question, Chris. Gosh, I never really thought of that. I guess my best moment was when I got to be with Emily and she started to help me in the game. And so there's not one particular moment that she did that, but I remember her saying like, "Oh no, this is who we're voting for and you're fine." Because I kept saying, "I think I might be next." And she's like, "No, no, this is how it's going." So just that part of the game, I think. The other part was almost winning that challenge, I guess, with against Emily and Eddie, because that made me feel that I redeemed myself a little bit from running the wrong way. So those were probably the highlights for me, I guess.
I found a question. Okay.
Yeah.
Who was your favorite pre-merge contestant in the game?
Oh,
Like if you had
gosh.
to go to lunch tomorrow with like one pre-merge contestant, who would it be?
I say Louis.
Pre-merge.
There's
Louis
a
made the
pre
merge. He made it
merge.
to day 2.
Pre-merge.
So of all the people who made it only to day 1,
So that
excluding
would be
so
Serena,
Okay.
Serena, Hung, Caleb, Josh, Sandy, Charles, and
Avanti.
Dan, you're saying Katie,
Oh,
Avanti,
pre-merge.
and Katie,
yeah,
and
Katie and
Sarah?
Sophia don't go.
Yeah.
They made the merge.
Okay.
Well, she only really played with Avanti, Susan, and Josh. Not Susan, I'm sorry, Sandy and Josh. But
Oh darn. Well, I guess so. Okay, fine.
So
she can pick whoever she wants.
I probably would love to hang out with Sandy a little bit, just because we have a lot in common, and I felt like if she had been around longer, we might have bonded a little more closely, just because we both were in the same boat. She had traveled to New York to be with Caleb. I had traveled to New York to be with Emily, and she would do anything for Caleb, just like I'd do anything for Emily. So I think like we could have had a really nice bond, but time didn't allow that because
Yeah.
she left earlier than we didn't have the chance to really connect. But I think that was probably who I would pick pre-merge. Yeah, I wasn't thinking pre-merge, but yeah, that's
Oh, that's all good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that Sandy has an open invitation to anybody who goes to visit New Orleans. So
Yeah.
you'll have to reach out if you ever go down.
I would love to. I would love to see everybody. Like I just like Sam and Pete. I'd love to go visit them, and it would be so fun. And like I said, we tried to visit Chris, but you were working, I think, that day that we drove by, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh darn! But it's so great to see everybody at the reunion too, and I'll be up for that when things get back to normal. We'll have to come up there again, and Dan, you'll have to come from Michigan.
I would love to. Yes,
Yeah,
of course.
that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, because my family lives in Maryland, where you are.
Oh yeah, that's
yeah.
right. I remember that. Yeah.
Should be pretty easy.
Yes, we should do that. And you guys, anybody can come see us too down down here. So
Yes.
open invitation.
think.
road trip.
Yeah.
No.
So, Susan,
Aw.
one question we've asked everybody so far is, would you play in a game like this again? It doesn't necessarily have to be Survivor New York. There are many other games like this across the United States and I think even some other countries. But would you
Oh.
play in something like this again?
I would. I definitely would. I mean, it would have to be the right circumstances. This was, I mean, I felt like I almost got forced to play because of Emily asking and not wanting to disappoint her. But it was such an experience that I would be open to doing it again. Like, especially after it ended, I was on this high feeling. I know that sounds really strange, but it was like I could not stop talking about this experience. I told everybody. I shared it with so many people, and I often ended in tears, like talking about it because it was so meaningful. And I never thought that a reality game could provide such an experience as meaningful as this one. I mean, so I would definitely say yes. I would participate in anything. The right thing, but yeah.
Yes. I think wherever, if any game you went, people would know who you were. Because, someone like Pete has played a lot of these games and people know who Pete is. They love to spend time with him. And I think if you played another game, I think people would have the similar reaction. It'd just be like, oh my gosh, Susan's here. They would be so
Aw.
excited.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah,
I
That's
think
nice to
so.
hear.
And the experience you
Yeah.
had is entirely normal, by the way. I'd say
Is
it's
it?
Yeah.
less normal not to have a reaction like that to the game. It's
Yeah.
an experience.
It really is, and I tried to explain it, and it's almost like if you haven't gone through it, you can't quite explain it. It's just you can describe it, but to actually go through it is a whole nother, realm, and I just could not say enough positive. I mean, I came home. I think Chris, you might have asked Emily about this, but when we left, Sanchea needed a ride home. And she lived off of the New Jersey Turnpike, and I was taking Emily to New Jersey to the bus to get back to New York City. So I said I would give Sanchea a ride home. And she got in my car. And again, this is somebody I met 2 days prior. And she and I, I hate to admit this, but we cried all the way to her house, in good ways. Like we were having these conversations that you would never in a million years think you would have with just somebody you met a day and a half ago. And
Yeah.
her dad was waiting up for us because he was going to meet us at one of the rest stops. And I said, no, I'll just drive you home. It's right off the highway. And we got to her house at 1 a.m, and her dad was the most gracious man. He had prepared an entire vegetarian feast. And I was just going to drop her off because it was 1 a.m, and I was I was exhausted. But I was like, oh my gosh, how can I not come in and hang out? So I went into Sanchea's house at 1 a.m, had this wonderful Indian feast with her and her dad and her dog. And they really wanted me to spend the night because, Sanchea and I were
Right.
telling her dad how exhausted we were. And I probably should have because, I was not operating on full capacity, but I made it home and I was so relieved. And I think my husband was out of town, so I got home at 3 a.m. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I am exhausted, but I cannot wait to tell everybody about what I just went through. I wish I could have, called somebody right then and there, but I had this amazing experience with Sanchea and her dad, and they couldn't have been nicer. So that's just one little example of what this game does to people, random strangers who come together for a weekend and just experience something so meaningful. So,
Absolutely. Yes. I think a
yeah.
lot of us sort of traveled home
That's
together.
beautiful.
I still every day, I say it all the time, but I'm so grateful for Sarah and Josh who drove me home. I was a
Oh,
stranger to them and they took me all the way to my doorstep. And I
oh my
truly,
gosh.
I think I would have fallen asleep on the Metro North if that hadn't happened. So I am very appreciative of them. And I
Yeah.
would not would have gone to the kids and back. I would have been gone. But that's the beauty of getting to meet all these people who have uh, when people play Survivor games, they want to participate and they want to sort of come and have fun. And that's the
Right.
energy that we're always looking for, which is why, like, Dan, again, like, this cast is so perfect, is everybody wants to have fun. Nobody wants to, nobody wants to, like, backstab their best friend. They all want to have fun. Some people, maybe
Right.
Josh wanted to, but, in good fun.
Yeah.
All
Well, I
good.
was lucky to have Sanjay in the car because we could talk about the game the whole way to her to her home, and that was really great. Because had I just been alone for 3 hours in the car, I would have had all these thoughts swimming around in my head. But we, like Naomi said, you can talk about it and bond with people that you didn't know, right before. So, yeah.
Definitely. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Chris, is there anything else on the list? Anything else we need to cover?
I think we did it, guys.
Okay.
Well,
We did it. Well, it's been a very overwhelming few months just because of all the love and joy that we get to experience, where everybody's coming back and getting to talk to literally every person, which is, I mean, beyond. We were talking about it earlier. It's beyond sort of appreciated. Susan, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. It was wonderful. I told you guys earlier I thought I missed the boat, but now I'm so happy that, we were able to do this. It was
The
really
boat would have
great.
never taken off without you. We were not going anywhere.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
True.
Thanks
Get
for
over my
everything. It was
moment.
wonderful.
Awesome.
Yes.
I thank you, Dan, for being here. Thank you, Chris, for being with us every week. And Dan, for 3 episodes worth, I appreciate it so much.
My
So
honor. Absolutely.
Emily Paddock from season 4 called me an old person because I didn't know how to use this, but I figured it out. So it's this website called Linktree where you can connect with. I've made a link to literally everything: our fan favorite vote,
Oh,
our casting pool, our YouTube channel, the YouTube playlist with all of these interviews. So it's linktr.ee/Survivor New York, where you can find literally everything in regards to this channel, this game. And thank you, everybody. Make sure to subscribe to Live Reality Games on Facebook and YouTube. And listen to this podcast. I'll have a Survivor Maryland podcast coming up soon. There's lots more great content. But we're going to go to bed now, everyone. So
okay.
we'll stay here. But good night, everyone. Have a great rest
Good
of your day.
night.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.